Welcome back. In the previous two lessons we created a basic component and got it running in Joomla, and we've had a look at the theory behind the Joomla MVC. It's now time to turn our simple component into an MVC component. Let's do a little preparation before we start adding the code. The first thing we need to do is create what I call the master controller. This is a file in the root component folder and we give it the name controller.php. The next thing is to create a folder to hold all our models, so we add a models folder to the root component folder. In this folder we need to create our first model. I'm going to use the default naming convention just for this example and call it hello.php. It's important to note here that Joomla usually expects there to be a model for each view. Next, I'm going to add a set of folders to support any views we have in our component. The base folder is called Views. Then under Views we add a folder for each individual view. I'm going to go with the default naming convention again and call the view Hello. Under this folder I'm going to add a TMPL folder that will hold all our layouts for the view. Now, in the view/hello folder I'm going to add a file that will contain the view calls, and this has a special naming convention. The name will be view dot, the format of the output, dot php. So in this case it will be view.html.php because we want to display the HTML that will be placed in the layout. Now, under the TMPL folder we'll add the layout file, and the standard convention for the file name is default.php. Once we've created all the files, we can grab one of our index.html files and add copies to all of the new folders we've created. Now let's start fleshing out some code. I'm going to work backwards, so I'm going to start in the layout default.php file. First I'll use a snippet to add the standard file header. Next I'm going to close the PHP brace and type in some text that I want to display. That's all we need to do in the layout for now. Let's move to the view.html.php file. Again, I'll use the snippet to insert the file header. When that's in, I'm going to use another snippet to give me a basic view class. I'll fill in the package and the subpackage to suit. Then I just need to add the name of the component and the name of the view. In this case, both names are hello. Let's look at the finished code. First, there is a function called to jimport. We use the jimport function to load library classes, and we give it a dot notation path to follow to load the class. And this path marries with the folder and file hierarchy under the core libraries folder. Suffice to say, it loads the file that defines the jView class. Next, we have a doc block for the view class, and as I mentioned in the introduction to these lessons, you should always provide a doc block for a PHP class. This doc block includes a brief description for the class and defines its package and subpackage. The snippet you'll be using will also have an @since tag, where you can specify the version or the date that you added this class. Now, the class name is important. Its structure has to be the name of the component, followed by the word view, followed by the name of the view. It sounds a little bit silly in this particular case because we're using all the default naming conventions to keep it simple, but this gives us a class name of hello view hello, and it extends the jView class. That's all we need at this stage for things to just work. Let's move to the model hello.php file. Note this file name is the same as the name of the folder for the view which it supports. We'll add the snippet for the file header doc block as usual. Now I'm going to add a snippet that builds the basic model class. Just like for the view, there are two key pieces of information to construct the model class, and those are the name of the component and the name of the model. First, we need to jimport the base model class from the libraries. The name of the model is very similar to the view. It's the name of the component followed by the word model, followed by the name of the model. Again, hello model hello is a silly sounding class name, but that's just because we're using all the default names. The model class extends the JModel class. And just like the view, that's all we need for the moment for things to just work. So we've added the view and the model. The last piece in the puzzle is to add the master controller. Let's move back to the controller.php file, and I'll add the standard header for the file. I've got a snippet for the master controller, and I just need to feed it the package, subpackage, and the name of the component. This snippet looks really similar to the view and the model. We've just used jimport to bring in the base controller class. Then the name of the master controller is simply the name of the component followed by the word controller, and this extends the library class called jController. Just like for the view and the model, this is all we need for the moment to produce a result. Now we have all the pieces to make our MVC Hello World. All we need to do is to tell the component to use them. Let's move back to the master component file hello.php. We aren't going to need the echo line anymore because we want the view and the layout to do this for us. I've got a simple snippet for this file. All I need to define is the name of the component, and we're just about there. Okay, there's some interesting code here, so let's take a short walk through it. The first block is an access check for whether the current user can access this component. We use PHP's chaining ability to get the user object via the jFactory getUser method and then call the user authorize method. We pass this method two arguments. The first is the permission to test for, and core.manage is the standard permission in Joomla 1.6 that controls access to the component. The second is the context for the permission, and in this case the name of the folder the component lives in. All this means is we are testing whether the current user is allowed to core.manage the hello component. If they aren't, we're going to return control to Joomla and raise a warning using Joomla's jerror class. Once we get past the access challenge, we need to use jimport again to bring in the base jController class. Then there are three simple steps. We instantiate the controller using jController's getInstance method. All we need to do is pass the name of the component, and it will go and find the class we declared in controller.php. Next, we execute the task from the request. We do this using a helper class called jRequest and using its getVar method. We just have to pass it the name of the request variable we're after. The execute method goes off and does all our MVC magic in all the other files we just created. When it comes back, the last thing we need to do is fire the redirect method in the controller. We'll look at why we do this in another lesson, but for now just take it for granted that the controller will sometimes need to set another page for the browser to go to. With all that in place, we can turn back to our browser and our Joomla site and access our Hello World component in the usual way. And there you go. The message we put in the layout a while back is now displaying nicely, all powered by the Joomla MVC. It's still not quite looking like a normal Joomla component, so in our next lesson we're going to look at how to add the toolbar to the page. See you back real soon.